Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I just got back from Arizona with my wife, and my family's moving there, and pretty excited about it. I lived there when I first got out of college, and I just wanted to talk to you quickly about that and kind of how to make decisions as you're kind of looking towards which residencies you want to get recommendations for and where you want to go, or if you're looking for a job, where you want to go. And when I first got out of school, I took an APPE rotation in Arizona. No, I didn't even have an APPE there. I just went there to check it out. So what I did was I squished my APPE. The way that we did it is an elective was only 3 days a week, and I squished all of my days in the beginning so I would have a week to go out there without any penalty or anything like that. And I was going to go to Arizona, California, New Mexico, and I think maybe even Colorado. And I just fell in love with Arizona. I just felt at home. I didn't end up going to the other states. I just checked out Tempe, and I checked out Phoenix area, and then I checked out Tucson below it. And I just loved it so much that I decided that I wanted to move there. So as you're trying to make these checklists on where you want to live and all of that stuff, a lot of it's going to be fit. So just being able to get to where you want to go, I think, is the biggest thing in making a good decision as to what's going to work, because it's going to be a lot less logical and a lot more intuitive. So let me go through. I haven't done a pharmacy news in a while, so I've got a lot to catch up on. TLDR Pharmacy is putting out a number of blog posts, and the most recently one was Warfarin, the Definitive Guide. So if you've got an APPE where you're going to be doing anticoagulation, if you're going to be answering residency interview questions, definitely check out the Definitive Guide. You're going to be expected to know this stuff if someone asks you. Certainly about warfarin, maybe a little less about the DOACs and things like that. But there's a point where in your P4 year, especially if you're interviewing in February, maybe late January, that you'll be expected to know these things. But that's a really, really good blog post. MedEd 101, his most recent blog was talking a little bit about the ASHP mid-year, and he had someone sharing with him on, with a guest post from RX Ashley, so Ashley Clevens-Hayes from the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Hers is actually the RX Buzz podcast, but she talks about what her situation was and how she really kind of what she took away from it. You can see some pics there, and again, I'm kind of jealous again that I didn't make it out there, and I just, I kind of love going out to ASHP, but when you're, you got a bunch of kids, it becomes tougher and tougher, especially if you're not clinical, and as I am, I have to choose between APHA and ASHP, and I decided to go to APHA in March this year. His podcast, so he did MedEd 101 again, has that real-life pharmacology podcast, pseudoephedrine pharmacology, fentanyl pharmacology, and then quinolone antibiotic pharmacology with the last three. Again, those are quick hitters, 7 to 15 minutes, just great to review, especially if you're doing PCOA and stuff like that. If you want a much stronger review, again, with Eric, I did the Thrill of the Case audiobook. It's $14, or if you've never been on Audible before, they'll give it to you for free. I really just absolutely love making this book, or working with him to make this book. He takes all of his clinical knowledge, puts it into a book, and then I just kind of put it in an order that kind of matches the things that I'm doing in my class, in pharmacology class, and then that I think that are intuitive. But Thrill of the Case, you can check that out. There's an Audible sample. You can get about a 5-minute sample, see if it's something you like. But I really loved how this one came out with all of the case studies. Happy Farm D, I haven't looked at what he's had for a while. But there was a neat blog post on there from community pharmacist to pharmacist consultant, and it's not a meme, but the picture is kind of like that, kind of like a yes, and it was a real success story. So uh, someone who just again, I appreciate the community pharmacies and the retail pharmacies for hiring us for, with very little experience, if any, when we first got out. Although that's quite a bit different now, where you should expect to have a year or so as a tech if you want to get a job with one of the bigs. But I know that after a certain amount of time, or maybe life changes where you get married, you have kids, and it just becomes very difficult to be a good parent with those kind of weirder schedules, 8 to 4, 2 to 10, weekends, and all those things. So there's a really kind of a neat blog post about going from community pharmacy to pharmacy consultant. And then if you want to check out the new book that came out from the other audiobook I did with Blair Thielemeyer. That was a really fun one, and I think it's really hard to understand what consulting is. I think just in the aggregate, and Blair, what she did was she wrote this great book, which is kind of a one-person story of how she was in a position where she needed to create a job because there wasn't a job available. And you can find the audiobook. It's $5 on Audible, or if you've never had anything, again, you can get that free from Amazon. And it's called How to Build a Pharmacy Consulting Business, Your RX for Finding Freedom and Loving Your Career. And it really kind of explains, what does it mean to be a consultant? I have no idea. Like, what does it mean? Like, what is it like? And it's about 3 hours, so it's not a quick thing. You'll get a couple commutes in there, but besides just here's what a consultant does and here's how I became a consultant, it's tips on not only becoming a consultant, establishing your practice, but making a great practice that can replace your income. And she's proof positive, as she's moved on and actually turned down a directorship position at a hospital to continue with her entrepreneurial journey. So definitely check that out, How to Build a Pharmacy Consulting Business, Your RX for Finding Freedom and Loving Your Career, the audiobook, which just came out a couple weeks back. Healthcare Scholar Magazine. This is kind of cool. It's a collaboration between a pharmacy student and a medical student, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Not only the content itself, but just kind of seeing how we can work together with other professions and kind of create some really cool content. And then also seeing what it is that physicians care about versus pharmacists and things like that. The Mothership Pharmacy Podcast Network. Dr. Jeff Brown, Aaron Albert is doing another segment. It's episode 3 of How I RX Roll, or How I RX Ol, and it's like roll. I can't quite get it right, but it's hashtag HOWIRXOL. And it's what a pharmacist in a physician office in a side hustle with clinical research looks like. And I think Jeff Brown is a recent graduate, so I think you would get a lot out of that episode. Digital therapeutics, so Dr. Timothy Ungst talks about digital therapeutics in creating evidence-based software, so if that's something you're interested in. Brian and Seth with process improvement in their compounding pharmacy inspection podcast is pretty good if you're in pharmacy compounding. And then Honeybee Health, I think I heard it on RX Radio too, but Ashley Clevens-Hayes does an episode with Jessica. I'm going to butcher the name. I thought it was Nahavandy, and kind of trying to figure out what to do about these drug prices. My wife and I, again, are paying out of pocket for one of our daughter's medicines, and that's a car payment a month. So very fortunate that we have not only our jobs, but the side hustles going to help us pay for that. But I think you'll get a lot out of that episode from Ashley. Same one that guest blog posted in Med Ed 101 with Eric Christensen. YFP team, I don't know about the public service loan forgiveness. They did a an episode on kind of figuring out, like, is it a waste? Because 99% of the people that applied were turned down because of all of these kind of hoops that you had to go to. And I've heard a couple of things where people are going to kind of get it and understand how to better fill out the forms, and there are going to be forgiveness programs, or maybe there will be, I don't know. But what I really liked was the episode before that, which was making the financial transition from PharmD to residency. Michael Murphy, I think, was Ohio State guy, and I know that one of the Tims just moved to Ohio State, and he's in charge of, I don't know exactly how, he's in charge of the master's degree that's tied to the PGY1, PGY2 at Ohio State. And that's not an uncommon, well, maybe it is an uncommon thing, but kind of neat to be able to get a master's degree, because in some areas you do need to have that credential to teach or to kind of move on into certain areas. And I think this one's in administration. But making the financial transition from PharmD to residency was something that maybe you guys are certainly thinking about now. But the YFP team, always kind of a quality listen. RX Radio did something that I guess I would have done if I had had more time, but come on, I published 4 audiobooks in this quarter, or I was in charge of producing 4 audiobooks, and hopefully our audiobook for residency will be out just at the end of December, certainly by beginning of January, before you get on the plane to actually go on your interviews. But RX Radio had ASHP Midyear, the pharmacist perspective, and then another episode with the student's perspective. And I always listen on, I want to say it's SoundCloud. SoundCloud. And I think you'll get a lot out of both of those episodes. It's ASHP is such a kind of an eye-opening thing as to who your competition is. So when you're saying, okay, I'm going to, do some applications for residency, and then you realize how many people there are. Right now I'm doing 11 recommendations for a single person, and it's actually not a lot of work if you work together well with the person who wants to apply, and you kind of have good communication about that. But it's a lot of work, so make sure you get these requests to the recommenders quick. But 2 episodes I really enjoyed at RX Radio. Again, you can get if you got Kindle or Kindle Unlimited, that thing where you pay like $10 a month with Amazon, go ahead and get our 100 Strong Residency Interview Questions, Answers, and Rationales book now. You can buy it for $10. But we're also going to have our audiobook coming out soon, and so you can get that as well. And it's not going to be very expensive. Talk to Your Pharmacy podcast had an episode on prepping for pharmacy residency interviews. That was a live panel discussion with some of our friends there in the Nashville area. Fit Pharmacist. The recent one was Secret to Happiness, but I really like the one that having a passion outside of pharmacy, and it was really kind of cool, again, to think about what it is that pharmacy is not the end goal necessarily, that it's supposed to support many things, including your family and things like that. 2 Pills podcast. This is one that I've just started listening to. They're relatively, I don't want to say new, but they're relatively consistent, where you'll get about 2 episodes a month, and generally focused on education, really understanding how to teach. And so I'll probably include this in my APPE as we kind of move on. Let's see. New content from my Memorizing Pharmacology website, so memorizingpharmacology.com. If you're somebody that's looking at the top 200, I've got free quizzes on there for that. If you have a medical terminology class you want to take, or you never took it and you want to kind of quiz yourself on these names, I've also got a Memorizing Medical Terminology quizzes on there as well. Really mobile friendly. I think you'll enjoy it. So the YouTubers, so Kevin Yee, Better Understanding Entrepreneurship. One of the tough things with what we do is, in many ways, we're sort of in sales and we don't want to be pushy. So we call it marketing or something like that, but it's sales. And I think that it's not this most recent episode, the Nice Guys Finished Last in Entrepreneurship, but the one before that, How to Close a Sale Without Being Pushy, I really liked. Kind of understanding how to think really more from the value that you're providing the person rather than worrying about, the sale and things like that. I love that Brian Fung is doing these you get an episode every week. And he did the ASHP mid-year one, and then he did a vlog from it, which I really liked. And now he's going to do some job outlook for pharmacy informatics, and then he has 3 more episodes that has to do with informatics. So really creating his niche there. And just if you're a YouTuber or want to be a YouTuber, I think you'll really enjoy it. And then DIY. So it's Paul Tran DIY. He's a pharmacist. And his DIY channel looks like it has nothing to do with pharmacy. But it's just kind of cool as you're thinking about what you're going to do. And if maybe pharmacy isn't for you, the numbers are around 50%, whether you're graduating from law, medicine, or pharmacy. Half the people would have chosen something else. And the numbers are just different. When I graduated from pharmacy, I paid $16,000 in tuition for 4 years. And now you guys pay $160,000 for tuition for 4 years. So the bet is so much bigger that you sometimes unintentionally stay in it, even though you really don't want to be in it. And I think Paul Tran does a great job, kind of showing you something that's completely different from pharmacy. And I think you'll really enjoy it. I think he did a garage remodel. It's just the first part of that. So again, feel free to touch base with me. Tony Farm D1 on Facebook is how most people just ask me a quick question or something like that. But I'm here to help you out. I'm fortunate enough that I've got a lot of things in place that are working well. I haven't had student loans since 2 or 3 years after I graduated. I finished my retail career about 6 years in to pharmacy, or 6 years out of school. And this author thing, as I went back to Arizona, I forgot how long it took me to kind of find my niche. And it was because I let it go, and I let pharmacy get in the way, and I didn't kind of keep at it with what I really, really wanted, which was to become an author. And now, I understand things better, and looking back, it would have been so much easier. But don't quit on what you think your side hustle should be. Keep at it. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys next week, and again, feel free to reach out.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.